Here's something strange. On the morning of Easter Sunday, while most of the country was at church or watching their kids hunt for eggs in the yard, the President of the United States was on Truth Social. And what he posted at 8:03 in the morning was not a message of peace. It was not a pastoral reflection. It was a threat wrapped in a profanity, wrapped in a sarcastic invocation of someone else's holy name, aimed at a nation of 90 million people. That's where this story starts. Not in a congressional hearing room, not at a press briefing, on a phone screen, on Easter morning. Here's the detail that doesn't add up. 11 days later, a sitting member of the United States House of Representatives sent a letter not to the Speaker, not to the press, not to a committee chairman, but to a doctor, specifically to Captain Sean P. Barbabella, D.O., the physician to the President at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. And the letter did not ask for a policy briefing or a budget line or a legislative vote. It asked for a medical evaluation, a neuropsychological assessment of the sitting President of the United States. Consider what that means. Consider what it takes politically, institutionally, reputationally for an elected member of Congress to put his name on a letter to the White House doctor and say, in writing, we need to know if this man is cognitively fit to hold the office he occupies. That is not a normal act. And the letter filed through the House Judiciary Committee on April 10th, 2026 explains in careful and methodical detail why Representative Jamie Raskin believed normal was no longer the applicable standard. Jamie Raskin is the ranking member on the House Judiciary Committee. He is a former constitutional law professor. He has spent his career in the careful architecture of legal argument building cases brick by brick, never overreaching, always anticipating the counterargument. So when Raskin writes a letter, you read it. And when Raskin writes a letter to a military doctor asking for a cognitive screen of a sitting president, you read it very carefully. Captain Sean Barbabella is the physician to the President, a United States Navy officer, appointed to oversee the medical care and health assessments of the Commander-in-Chief. He is not a political figure. He is a doctor bound by professional obligations and military duty, and in October of 2025, just a few months before any of what we're about to describe began to unfold, Captain Barbabella issued a formal statement. He said the President continues to demonstrate excellent overall health. That statement matters, because Raskin's letter asks Barbabella directly, do you still stand by that? Here's what we know from the letter itself and the public record it cites. On Easter Sunday morning, April 5th, 2026, President Trump posted the following to Truth Social. The letter quotes it directly, so I'll read it to you the way it appears on the page. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day all wrapped up in one in Iran. There will be nothing like it. Open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch. Praise be to Allah. Posted at 8:03 in the morning on Easter Sunday by the President of the United States. Notice three things in that post. There is vulgarity. There are unprecedented threats against civilian infrastructure power plants, bridges in a country America is actively engaged in conflict with, and there is what Raskin's letter calls a sarcastic invocation of Islam on Easter morning specifically. The letter describes it as a bizarre display that shocked tens of millions of Americans and astonished observers across the political spectrum. That's the letter's phrasing, and it isn't wrong. But it didn't stop there. The following morning, Easter Monday, the President appeared at the White House Easter egg roll. There were children, there were pastel dresses and bunny ears. There was a person in an Easter bunny costume standing next to the President of the United States. And the President, according to reporting from CNN and People magazine cited in Raskin's letter, launched into what the letter describes as an inexplicable rant about the Iran war, describing bombing missions, downed fighter jets, and rescue operations to an audience of small children. He then told the assembled kids that they could sell his autographs on eBay for $25,000. Then, according to contemporaneous reporting, he descended the White House steps with, and I'm quoting from reporting cited in the letter, labored physical difficulty, gripping the First Lady for support, and displaying visible dark bruising on his right hand. 2 days after Easter, on Tuesday morning, the President escalated again. Another Truth Social post. Raskin's letter quotes it in full. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. The letter notes that legal experts, world leaders, and the Pope Leo XIV repudiated those words and warned that any strikes on civilian infrastructure would constitute war crimes. From the letter April 10th, 2026, when the President of the United States threatens to extinguish a civilization on social media, rants about combat missions with children at the Easter egg roll, and drops profane tirades on Easter morning, we have indisputably entered the realm of profound medical difficulty and concern. And here's where the paper trail becomes its own kind of revelation. Raskin's letter does not limit itself to Democratic voices. It catalogs with footnotes, with dates, with platform links, a remarkable list of people sounding alarms about the president's mental state. People you would not expect. Former Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who for years was among the president's most fervent defenders in Congress, posted to X that the president has gone insane and explicitly called for the invocation of the 25th Amendment. Tucker Carlson, who campaigned for the president in 2024, called the Easter Sunday Post vile on every level and urged administration officials to figure out the codes on the nuclear football to prevent catastrophe. Candace Owens called the president a genocidal lunatic and demanded that Congress and the military need to intervene. Alex Jones went on his broadcast and asked, on the air, how do we 25th Amendment his ass? All of this is in the footnotes of a formal congressional letter. Sourced, dated, linked. Here's the moment everything clicks. Raskin's letter draws a direct and deliberate parallel to what Republicans themselves did when they had questions about a president's cognitive fitness. When questions arose about President Biden's mental acuity, Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer did not write op-eds. He subpoenaed the White House physician. He issued a comprehensive staff report. Judiciary Committee Chairman Jim Jordan declared on the record that a president who is not cognitively fit isn't fit for office. Raskin quotes both men directly in his letter and then addresses them both by name, saying he trusts they will stand by this important principle today. That is not rhetoric. That is a legal and institutional trap laid in plain sight with the other party's own words as the bait. And at the center of it is a doctor, a military officer, a man who said in writing 6 months ago that the president was in excellent overall health. Raskin's letter gives Barbabella a deadline 5 p.m. on April 24th, 2026, to conduct a comprehensive neuropsychological assessment, release the results publicly, and make himself available for a briefing under oath. 3 things in writing, with a date, from a member of Congress to the president's physician. And here's the part that should concern all of us. This isn't about partisan point scoring. We know that because the people most alarmed by the letter's own accounting are not the president's opponents. They are his former allies. The 25th Amendment isn't a democratic invention. It is a constitutional mechanism ratified in 1967, designed for exactly this kind of moment, when the question of a president's capacity becomes, in the letter's phrase, plainly out of the realm of normal politics. That phrase is doing a lot of work, because the letter is essentially arguing that we have already crossed a threshold, that the behavior documented in those 3 days in April 2026 is not a political problem. It is a medical one, and that the only person in a position to formally evaluate it is a Navy doctor who, as of this writing, has not responded. There is also a military dimension here that is easy to miss. The letter opens by noting that at a time when our country is at war, especially when the war was initiated by the president without congressional declaration or consent, the American people must be able to trust that the commander-in-chief has the mental capacity to discharge the essential duties of his office. That sentence is not an abstraction. There is an active conflict. There is a nuclear football. There is a post on Truth Social from a 79-year-old president saying a civilization will die, and it probably will. Raskin is not asking a hypothetical question. He is asking about the man with his finger on the architecture of American military power. Right now, today, there are 2 threads here that remain unresolved, and they're worth sitting with. The first, Captain Barbabella has made no public response. His October 2025 health assessment stands as the official word, but that assessment predates everything documented in Raskin's letter. Will he respond? Will he comply? Will he invoke patient confidentiality and decline? And if he does, what does that silence mean constitutionally? For a country that has enshrined in its founding document a mechanism for removing a president who cannot serve. The second thread is the one Raskin himself points to without fully pulling. Republican leadership. Comer subpoenaed Biden's doctor. Jordan said an unfit president isn't fit for office. Their own words are now in a congressional letter, on the record, waiting. The question isn't whether Raskin has made his case. The question is whether anyone in the majority has the standing, the institutional courage to act on a standard they themselves set. The letter is dated. The deadline has passed. The doctor has not spoken. And the president is still posting.